So, MMA topic number one. What did we decide to talk with? I don't have notes in front of me.
All right, I think the biggest news story, or not the biggest news story, I think one of the most interesting things that I read today on the internet was that Dana White said that GSP needs to beat a contender at 155 pounds before he can get a shot at Khabib. Now, GSP has never fought at 155 pounds. I don't know if he could even make 155 pounds, but this is an interesting thing. And Michael Bisping, you being the last person that fought George St. Pierre, and him getting a title shot at a higher weight class, having not beaten a contender at that weight class, having not fought in 4 years, I figure you probably have the best perspective on this.
Well, I generally do, but Lewis, I know that you're going to give me your opinion and then allow me to counter that, because you think Dana's crazy for saying that you think GSP should be allowed that, right? Correct? You think he should be able to walk into a title shot. Go ahead.
I think that we should have some sort of criteria and some sort of consistency with, forget just the UFC, anything. Like, even like as a human being, the way we, the way we consume things, that familiarity and those, when you go through like cycles, human beings are designed this way. I just don't like how there's no rhyme or reason to how the UFC books fights anymore. No rhyme or reason to the, criteria for judging, which don't get me wrong, they've made a real effort to change that recently. But there's so much gray area. Why would GSP get a title shot with you at 185 pounds, which he, is a higher weight class? Just pure logic. It's technically a tougher weight class by all technical standards. And he wins that title. He never lost a 170-pound title, but now he wants to drop down to fight Khabib, but now he needs to be a contender. I feel like Dana White knows that he's not going to want to go fight somebody at 155 pounds, so it's kind of a way that he gets to say, you know what, I'm going to protect Khabib because it's technically a winnable fight, a really winnable fight for George. He's a way bigger guy, great wrestling, better striking. Michael Bisping, yes? Yes? In the back?
Thank you, sir. Okay, here's the situation. You're absolutely right. Of course, on merit, GSP deserves that. Of course he does. But you've got to look at the consequence that will have on the UFC and the lightweight division. Of course, there's tons of stars down there. I don't think it's got anything to do with the fact that you think GSP would beat Khabib. I think you're right. I think GSP probably would beat Khabib. I think he could make 155. His frame, if he got the meat off him, he could certainly make 155, I feel. But the problem is for the UFC, GSP even said himself, he's got no designs on sticking around. He's got no designs on working his way through the division. He's after legacy fights only, okay? So let's say GSP comes down there, he fights Khabib, he beats Khabib, he wins the belt, just like he did against me, and then fucks off again. It's just not good for the UFC. It's not good for the division, So Dana's like, well, I'm not. You did that once. You said that you would defend the belt, but he didn't do that. He vacated the belt, which was, actually very honourable of George to do so. I thought it was very decent of him to do that. He knew he wasn't going to defend, so he wasn't going to hold up the division, and he vacated the belt. Very honourable, but Dana can't allow that situation to happen again for a second time. So he's like, okay, well, if you want to do that, you got to fight someone else first. Fight a contender first, and then prove that you want to do that. And George said himself that he doesn't want to do it. And I understand that would just rip the lightweight division apart. You'd have a champion that beats Khabib, who is, widely considered the number one in the world, the pound for pound best now. He's going to beat him and then disappear. Just so what? Just so George can have it on his record that I truly am the best. Fuck the UFC, fuck Khabib, fuck the lightweight division, fuck MMA. It's just all about his ego. He's not, and I don't mean this in a detrimental way to George. I understand it from George's perspective. But if you look at it, that's just all an ego pampering session for George St. Pierre to come in. Give me Khabib, let me beat Khabib, and then disappear back under the rock. You know what I mean? Go hang out with his alien buddies. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't do anyone any good. Yes, it would be an interesting fight. Yes, people would pay to see it. But in the grand scheme of things, in the flow of the sport, it doesn't do anything for it.
You are fucking right. And it pains me to say it. You really did just break it down in as clear of a way as possible. And you're right. As soon as you started saying it, I went, holy shit, wait a minute. I completely agree. I hate the fact that we have, in my recent memory, a handful of what can only be described as paper champions. Guys who got the belt without beating the guy who had the fucking belt. George St. Pierre has technically created paper champions in 2 divisions. He's that dude. He's a fucking paper champion maker. And Dana's like, yeah, dude, sorry, you're not going to, it's discrediting our titles. There are people that feel the same way that I feel, that I go, well, you know what? I mean, look, they never beat George for that 170-pound title. 170 is so long ago that I sort of, you know, my memory is like jogged. And because the sport evolved so quickly, I think that, you know, George probably would have lost that title. But the reality is he didn't. And the same thing at 185 pounds. I don't like that at all. So you're right. What I do think the solution here, though, because fuck that, we still should see the best fighters in the world. And George versus Khabib, I really want to see that fight. That's like I salivate at that idea.
Absolutely. And going back to the point that you were just saying and I was saying, the problem would be that he would then put a cloud over 3 divisions, 55, 70, and 85. You know, and you can't allow that to happen. But as you say, as a fan, we want to see that fight. So let's have them fight at a catch weight. Therefore, there's no titles in jeopardy. It's literally a catch weight fight. It's a fight for the ages. It's a fight for the fans. There's no belts on the line. Say 165, 160, whatever it is. You both come in.
Right in the middle.
Fight. It's almost a demonstration bout. You know what I mean? There's no titles on the line, but this is just for legacy. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. And I would love to see that. I would.
What's right in the middle? 162.5, right? Yeah, so like 163, that's a perfect fight. I'd be really, really excited to see. And that's a fight that actually makes sense, you know? I know they had talked about doing a 165-pound division and making that happen. You know, where there's smoke, there's fire. Have you heard anything behind the scenes? Is that something that's really, like, even at all in the works?
No, not to my knowledge, although I will say this, and again, this is pure speculation. I do feel, remember I said if Conor was to have beaten Khabib inside the first round, and we'll move on in a second from the Khabib talk, because it seems like he's just been dominating everything in the MMA space lately, which he has, and rightly so. But if Conor had have beaten him inside the first round, I feel that the UFC would have done a 165-pound title either against Diaz or Poirier at Madison Square Garden, because Conor even alluded to that at the press conference. He even talked about maybe I'll go fight in New York. If he'd have gone out there, did what he did to Eddie Alvarez or whoever, smoked them inside the first round, took no damage, he could go have a few days party and fly up to New York and get a new weight class, you know, get a new belt, be a 2-weight champion again. I feel the UFC would have done that, and it would have made sense business-wise. But obviously, as we know, it didn't go down like that. What else we got, Harrington? As I say, I apologize. I haven't got the notes in front of me. It's all good.
When you talked about Nate, so talk to me. I'm a little bit confused about the Nate Diaz Poirier story, Harrington. So fill us in. This could be Harrington's hammer fisting segment of the day.
Yep.
So what exactly happened here? I heard Nate Diaz said he's going to go back on tour. I don't even know what that means. I didn't know Nate Diaz was touring. Is he in a band? What is he doing? What is that?
I have no idea. But apparently, Dustin Poirier, that undisclosed injury that he had that knocked him out of New York, was a nagging hip injury. It looked at first like he might need surgery. Now he says he's going to stay in LA, get stem cell injections, and he said he should be ready to go within 3 weeks. He's trying to set something up with Diaz before the end of the year. Diaz thinks it's absolute bullshit, claims he heard nothing from him or his camp when he pulled out. There's something fishy here. And he says only George Masvidal is real enough in that division.
Okay. Thank you, Harrington. That gives us lots of things to discuss there. Obviously, Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, that prick. Dustin Poirier not being on steroids, not having a USADA violation, as you speculated, Lewis. Solid journalism, though. Solid journalism. You're right.
Every time we're wrong, it's I speculated, and then when we have to apologize, Lewis did this.
No. Lewis, that was your theory.
Believe you me,
that was your theory. I've seen the highlight clip. You said, and I said, no. Dustin Poirier is an old school type of guy. He's not out there doing steroids. Okay, that is what I said verbatim. You know why? Because I went back and checked that shit because I wanted to make sure it didn't look like I was accusing Dustin Poirier of being on steroids. Okay. Also, injuries. I mean, look at UFC 230. At one point, it had Rockhold versus Weidman and Diaz versus Poirier. Both of those fights, which are fantastic fights, are off the card. So it's got to be frustrating for the UFC. Of course, you've got DC versus Lewis, which is a good fight. But Diaz, Rockhold, Weidman, all those guys, it would have been great having them on there. Of course, Jacare's fighting Weidman now. Great fight. Surprised them two haven't fought before. That's an interesting one. Interesting clash of styles. Luke Rockhold. Poor guy, eh? I mean, if he could only, what are the words I'm looking for? If he could only like conceive that he'd be okay, believe that he would be okay, perhaps he could achieve making it to the octagon.
So what are you saying? Are you saying that you didn't say you're alluding, which we don't respect people who allude on the show, okay? But are you alluding to the fact that Luke Rockhold does not have the mental will to keep himself from getting injured in this fight?
Well, I heard him spouting about such mental fortitude at a press conference once, and it sounded like he was, very, very mentally strong. He was lecturing a crowd. He was telling them all about it and what you have to do. There was someone chirping from the audience. Do we have a clip?
All right, Mike, really quick, let's talk about one of our other sponsors on the show, which is Autoslash.com. I just used Autoslash when I was out in LA to rent a car. And if you guys don't know, and I know you travel all over the country, Mike, so you love, love, love Autoslash. It's the #1 site for getting great deals on car rentals, okay? If you know anything, if you've ever rented a car, you know that the prices fluctuate like minute to minute. You check 1 minute and then, you go on 20 minutes later, then it's a completely different price. What they do is they do all of that work for you. Imagine having a personal assistant that their entire job was for them to get you a discount on a car rental, get you the absolute best price. So they compare all the discount codes online, any like programs that you're a part of, like AAA or Costco, they apply those codes. They do all of the math for you and they give you the absolute best price possible. And check this out. This is the best part, Mike. If the price drops after you've booked it, you can rebook with them. They'll keep on tracking for you, and then you can rebook. It's just about saving money. Look, everyone knows, who doesn't? I don't give a shit how much money you have. You want to save some cash, and Autoslash makes that easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, if you do rent cars, if you travel, if you go to other cities, this and that, and especially if you have a family, you need to rent a car. And there's nothing more annoying than renting a car, paying a high premium, and then afterwards your buddy says, you should have went to such and such. It would have been way cheaper. And then you look it up online and you're like, for fuck's sake, I just wasted all that money. With Autoslash, that isn't going to happen. As Lewis says, it goes through all the sites and finds you the very best deal. The best deal. That's no bullshit. That's no sales pitch. That's what they do. That's the whole mission statement of Autoslash. So get involved. Go to autoslash.com. Do we have an offer for them, Lewis?
No, not even that. We just want you to go to Autoslash.com and use it. You don't have to type in a promo code. You don't have to juggle anything. You don't have to email anybody extra. Just go to Autoslash.com and check it out. They're free. They don't charge you a transaction fee. There's nothing like that. It's an absolutely free service. Go try it out. Why? Next time you're renting a car, kick yourself in the ass. You're like, why didn't I go to Autoslash? Why wouldn't I just save money? You're giving away money to the car renting gods, and they don't need it. They got all the money.
Why would